Daniel's father left at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. No goodbye. Just taillights disappearing down the street, swallowing the last word the 12-year-old boy would speak for 3 months. Silence became his skin. Invisible became his name. 6 miles away, a dog stood at the highway's edge for 2 full days. Tail wagging at every passing car. Every single one. Until his tail stopped moving altogether. Until he understood what Daniel already knew. Sometimes people just leave. And the ones left behind, they learn to stop hoping. But this is not a story about abandonment. This is about the collision. The moment a silent boy and a broken dog recognized the same scars wearing different skin. About how the ones society calls worthless sometimes carry the exact medicine we need to survive. What happened next didn't just change 2 lives. It revealed a truth we've forgotten. Salvation doesn't always look like being saved. Sometimes it looks like 2 drowning souls reaching for each other in the dark. Stay with this story, because what happens when they touch will remind you why love, even broken, messy, imperfect love, has the power to resurrect the dead parts of us we thought were gone forever. The classroom exploded with noise, chairs scraping, voices colliding, fluorescent lights humming their funeral march. Daniel sat in the back corner, hoodie pulled low, 12 years old, 3 months since his father's truck vanished at 3 a.m. The silence hadn't been a choice. It had been a collapse, a cave-in of the soul. Words lived trapped behind his ribs like birds with broken wings. The other kids didn't see him anymore. He'd become furniture, a ghost haunting his own life. Last night he'd found his mother crying over bills at the kitchen table, counting coins like rosary beads. She worked 2 jobs now, came home smelling like coffee and defeat. Her smile was a beautiful lie they both pretended to believe. The red envelopes had started arriving. Final warning, final notice. Daniel had learned that final was just another word for alone. Through the rain-streaked window, he pressed his forehead against cold glass and prayed without words. Please, someone, see me. He didn't know that outside those walls, bleeding and abandoned, something else was limping toward him through the rain. The dog had forgotten his name, forgotten everything except hunger, pain, and waiting for someone who never came back. His ribs showed through matted fur like piano keys. 6 days since the family dumped him at the highway. He'd waited 48 hours, tail wagging at every car, until his tail stopped wagging altogether, until hope bled out onto the asphalt. Now he limped through the rain, back leg dragging useless since the man had kicked him, steel-toed boot connecting with ribs. Worthless. Mutt. Get lost. The dog had learned humans came in 2 categories. Those who hurt you and those who looked away while you bled. He hadn't discovered the third kind yet. The kind who stayed. The kind who saw broken things and called them beautiful. The school building rose before him, brick walls exhaling warmth. Through a partially open door, he glimpsed rows of desks. Every instinct screamed run. But the rain was ice, his body was failing, and somewhere deep in his chest a tiny spark of faith still flickered. So he took 1 step, then another, Paws leaving blood on tile. Because sometimes survival looks like surrender. And sometimes the bravest thing a broken heart can do is try one more time. The dog appeared in the doorway like an apparition, soaked, trembling, leaving bloody paw prints across Mrs. Patterson's pristine floor. For 1 heartbeat, everything stopped. 23 pairs of eyes locked onto the creature standing there, ribs heaving, 1 leg held at an angle that screamed pain. Mrs. Patterson's mouth opened, and the sound came out sharp enough to shatter glass. Out! Get out! Filthy animal! She lurched forward, arms waving. Someone get this thing out of my classroom. The dog flinched, his whole body collapsing inward, haunches dropping as if expecting the blow he'd learned always followed raised voices. His injured leg buckled. He couldn't run, could only stand there, shaking, as laughter erupted from some students. Cruel, casual, the kind of mockery that costs nothing and destroys everything. Then Daniel moved. It wasn't a decision, it was an eruption. His chair scraped back like a gunshot. Every head turned. The silent kid, the invisible boy who hadn't spoken in 3 months. Standing now, eyes blazing with something that looked like rage, but felt like recognition. Because he knew God, he knew exactly what it felt like to walk into a room hoping for mercy and finding only contempt. Mrs. Patterson's mouth hung open mid-yell, shocked into silence. And in that crystallized moment, boy and dog locked eyes. 2 shattered souls recognizing the same wounds in different skin. Daniel's body moved on instinct, 3 strides and he was there. Kneeling, placing himself between the dog and Mrs. Patterson. His hands shook as he extended one palm, slow, so slow. The dog's eyes locked onto his, wild, feral, windows into a soul that had given up on gentleness. Daniel's throat burned. Words clawed at his silence. But his eyes spoke a language older than speech, brother. I know what they did to you. I know. Daniel, Mrs. Patterson shrieked. Get away from that disgusting. But she stopped. Because something in Daniel's posture had shifted, spine straightening, chin lifting, quiet defiance that looked like resurrection. The dead boy was suddenly, impossibly alive. The dog crept forward one trembling inch. Then another. His wet nose twitched, reading Daniel's scent, the salt of hidden tears, the particular perfume of abandonment, the frequency that only shattered things recognize in each other. Then the world tilted. The dog's nose touched Daniel's palm. Just that. Just skin meeting skin. And Daniel broke, tears flooding, chest heaving. His fingers found the dog's head, threading through matted fur with a gentleness that hurt to witness. The dog went still, completely still. That wild terror in his eyes melted into something that looked like disbelief, like a dying man seeing heaven and not trusting it's real. You're not nothing. Neither am I. Not anymore. The classroom dissolved. In that space between heartbeats, two abandoned souls stopped falling and caught each other instead. But outside the door, footsteps were coming, heavy, official. And Daniel's fingers tightened in the dog's fur. Not this time. This time someone stays. The principal's shoes clicked down the hallway like a countdown. Daniel had wrapped both arms around the dog now, sheltering that broken body against his chest. The dog's heartbeat hammered against Daniel's ribs, rapid, terrified, alive. Daniel's eyes found Mrs. Patterson's, and for the first time in 3 months, he looked her dead in the face. Not down. Not away. Through her. Mr. Hendricks filled the doorway. Son, you need to let go. Animal control is on their way. His voice wasn't cruel, just tired, practical. Daniel's arms tightened. The dog whimpered, not in pain, but in understanding, like he'd heard this song before, knew how it ended. Then something cracked open inside Daniel's chest. His mouth opened, shaped around sounds that felt like glass. 3 months of silence pressing against his teeth, begging for release. The whole classroom leaned forward, and Daniel's voice came out, raw, broken, beautiful as a resurrection. No. 1 word. 2 letters. A universe of defiance. He stays. The dog's body went rigid against him, as if recognizing the sound of someone finally fighting back. Mr. Hendricks blinked. In 12 years of teaching, he'd never heard Daniel's voice. Please. He stays with me. The classroom became a cathedral, 23 souls holding their breath. Mr. Hendricks stood motionless, his eyes traveling between the boy who'd just shattered 3 months of silence and the dog who'd stopped trembling the instant that voice emerged. Something cracked in the principal's expression. He lowered himself slowly to the tile, made himself small. Human. Daniel. That dog needs a vet. Medicine. Food. A home. Can your family? The question was a knife. Daniel's mother's face flashed through his mind, counting coins, the red envelopes screaming final notice, the empty cabinets. We're barely surviving ourselves. His arms loosened around the dog. Reality always won. The dog felt it instantly and pressed his body harder against Daniel's chest, heartbeat to heartbeat. Daniel's voice broke. I can't. We don't have. I can. 2 words. A lightning strike. Every head whipped toward the door. Emma Rodriguez stood there, small, fierce, tears streaming down her face. The quiet girl 2 rows over who'd left notes on Daniel's desk, who'd watched him disappear into silence and refused to look away. My mom runs the shelter on 5th. We take the broken ones nobody wants. Her eyes locked on Daniel's. We can take him tonight. Fix him. Feed him. Love him. And you can come. Every single day. Until your world stops falling apart. Until you can keep him yourself. Silence. Then, the dog's tail moved. 1 weak wag. Then another. Hope flickering back to life. Daniel's chest heaved, a sob exploding out of him. Raw, ugly, beautiful. Mr. Hendricks blinked hard. Even Mrs. Patterson's face had gone soft. And Daniel looked at Emma like she'd just pulled him from drowning, his voice barely a whisper. You'd do that? She smiled through tears. Someone has to catch the falling ones. 1 week later, Daniel stood outside the 5th Street shelter, his mother's hand warm in his. She'd worked an extra shift to afford the small bag of dog treats clutched in his other hand. His heart hammered. 7 days since he'd seen the dog. His mother squeezed his hand. Ready. Her voice carried hope she'd been missing for months. He nodded. Silence didn't mean broken anymore. The door opened. The dog stood in a kennel near the back, and Daniel almost didn't recognize him. The matted fur had been trimmed, revealing golden brown coat. The ribs still showed, but less violently. The injured leg had been wrapped, healing. But the eyes, those eyes locked onto Daniel and exploded with recognition. The dog launched forward, hitting the kennel door with his whole body, a sound ripping from his throat that was half bark, half sob. Pure joy, pure remembering. Emma opened the gate and the dog burst through, limping, clumsy, unstoppable, barreling straight into Daniel's arms. They collided like planets. Daniel dropped to his knees, and the dog was everywhere, licking his face, whimpering, tail whipping so hard his whole body shook. Daniel buried his face in that soft coat and wept, months of grief pouring out, held by something that understood loss in its bones. His mother cried too. Emma cried, and in that moment Daniel understood. He hadn't saved this dog. The dog had saved him, had given him a reason to speak again, to fight again, to believe that broken things could still be chosen, could still be loved. His voice came out muffled against warm fur, but clear. You're mine now. Forever. I promise. The dog's answer was a kiss, wet and sloppy and perfect. A promise returned. Two souls who'd been drowning, finally learning to float. Daniel's voice came back the day he stopped waiting to be saved and started saving something else. The dog learned to trust again the moment someone finally stayed. Here's what they won't tell you. We're all Daniel. We're all that dog. Walking around with scars we hide, convinced we're too damaged to deserve gentleness. Waiting for someone to see past the broken parts and whisper, "You're worth fighting for." Right now, there's a silent kid in a classroom who thinks nobody cares. A rejected soul who's stopped believing in second chances. A heart that's one moment away from giving up completely. What if you're the answer to someone's desperate prayer? What if your kindness is the difference between someone surviving and someone finally living? The world tried to make Daniel and that dog invisible. But love said, not today. Not ever. If this story cracked you open, don't let it end here. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because every week we bring you stories that prove broken isn't the same as finished stories of people and souls who refuse to stay down. Share this if you believe someone needs to hear it. Because somewhere, someone is waiting for permission to hope again. And maybe, just maybe, you're the reason they will.